Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Truth Seeking Network. So today, it's going to be a little short video. We're going to just basically talk about, you know, what's going on right now in politics. Kamala Harris running for president of the United States of America. Uh, Kamala Harris claiming to be so-called indigenous American or Black American, as y'all call Black American. But we are indigenous. We're not black, colored, or any of those other things. And it's sad to see our people on TV saying that we're African Americans. And the fact is, the majority of us were already here. The people who come from Africa today, they are African American, if you want to so speak, because they actually coming from the continent of Africa and actually coming over here, willingly coming over here. But we, you know, that slave, the whole slave trade story was bought and sold to us. It is not really a true story at all. Just like the movie Roots. Alex Haley was sued by Alex Corlander in 1978 for plagiarism of a lot of parts of his movie. He said that he came from Africa and this was his story. But actuality, Harold Corlander wrote a book 9 years earlier called The African. And even though he was sued, Alex Haley was sued for plagiarism, they continue to play Roots year after year on so-called Black History Month, brainwashing our people to the point where now they actually think that we actually were brought over here from by slave ships. And white people went to Africa. They went to hurricane infested waters. Now, mind you, they said the first slave trade started in 1619. The first slaves arrived in America in 1619. So how did the slaves beat the pilgrims to America? Because the pilgrims got here in 1620. And we know that most of the pilgrims didn't make it, or they even when they got here, they couldn't even live off the land. So who built slave ships to go back and forth to Africa? Big cargo slave ships, which didn't exist at that time, by the way. And Dan Calloway, if you look up him on YouTube, he did a good video. He did some videos on that to prove to you and show you that those slave ships didn't even exist at that time. So the slave story was something that was taught to us. Like I said, 6 months out of the year is hurricane season. So to go across those waters, and that's Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean is some rough waters. And you talking about on a sailboat. Now you barely made it here to England, from England to America. A lot of them died on the way, scurvy, yellow fever, all kind of diseases, right? But even if when they got here, they couldn't even live off the land. So how did the slaves beat the pilgrims to America in 1619 if the pilgrims didn't get here till 1620? And then again, who cleaned those ships? The so-called slave ships. You mean you went back and forth over the ocean, and originally they said it was what, over 12 million slaves. 12 million. You didn't even have that many boats. You didn't have the wherewithal to even make it yourself to actually go across the waters. Where did you store your water? Where did you store your food? Because you can't drink seawater. Seawater will make you sick. So you can't drink the seawater. You had no engine. You had no air conditioning. And according to the cartoon pictures, because that's all they show, is cartoon pictures of them chained up in the ship, all lined up, chained up. And common sense would tell you that that won't even make sense. On a 4.5 month journey back and forth, you got people chained up, and they'll be going to. I mean, they're going to be going on the bathroom on themselves, throwing up, vomiting, whatever else going on, right? Who's going to be walking around there like they showed on the Roots, passing around, giving them food to eat, putting food in their mouth? He said, eat the kuta, eat the food. It'll make us big and strong. And he was putting the white rice, whatever they was stuffing in their mouth during the movie. And they had somebody just walking around like giving them food. That person wouldn't be able to walk down there, and the hall would be so terrible. Imagine those Dons and John bathrooms. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When you go to a basketball game or a football game, or maybe to an amusement park and they got those little blue Dons and John's bathrooms. Imagine. And that's just, you go in there after one day. And those things are horrible. Just imagine the stench. And you talking about 4.5 months. And think about this, y'all. There was there was no tide. There was no cleaning material whatsoever. Matter of fact, they didn't even take baths because they brought disease to a lot of places in the world because they didn't. And these are just historical facts. And it's not, you can just go look this stuff up. Just go look it up. They brought disease to the world and they didn't have soap. They wasn't taking baths. They didn't have no Clorox bleach to bleach the ship down after all the slaves went all over the ship. They didn't even have cleaning supplies like that. So you telling me you got slaves with all in the bottom of your ship? I mean, what water did you use to give to those slaves and your crew? And the stench from the ship would have been so horrible. I mean, you have to use your real imagination, because your imagination, because they in these movies, they actually they put it in a way and they make you look like it was feasible. And so you kind of believe Hollywood. Hollywood is nothing but a lie, right? Because they tell a lie to your vision. And so now all this does is indoctrinate your mind to believe, oh yeah, they brought us here from Africa. But that did not happen. As millions of Americans know today, and it's all over the internet, and the truth is coming out everywhere, that we are the real indigenous Americans, and we were already here. And all the pictures concerning the real so-called, and we were not Native Americans. Let's get that straight too. There's a difference between a Native American and an Aboriginal American. The Aborigines or the Aboriginal Americans, now you go look up that definition, originally applied to the copper color races found here by Europeans, but now applied to descendants of Europeans born in America. So it originally applied to the Aboriginal copper colored people. And that's what we are. We are copper colored and different colors of copper. And all the old books, and you're going to look at my channel, you will see that they're actually talking all the old maps, all the tobacco packages, everything show so-called Negroes. Negroes. You didn't see the so-called Native American that they show today, which they have on the reservations today, which they have people portraying as the so-called indigenous Americans today, as the government portrays as the Indians today. And that's why the government, because that's why the government recognizes those tribes, because those tribes are part of a government organization. They are part of a government organization. So that's why they are recognized as the indigenous Indians, or the so-called the Native Americans. But I've got videos on this channel that you can go look back at. And matter of fact, I got Chief Kalanago. He's actually one of the brothers and he actually did an interview with one of the chiefs over there at an Indian reservation, and they admit to everything. They admit to who they are, and that a lot of those people that were signed by the Dawes Road, they don't go by the bloodlines. They don't go by blood. They go by whoever signed on the Dawes Road. And y'all can go watch my videos and you can find out what the Dawes Road is all about. But a lot of these so-called Native Americans today are not the Aboriginal Americans of whom the Pilgrims saw, of whom Giovanni Verrazano saw, and everybody that was with him, and so many other explorers that came to America. Those people are not who they saw. They saw the so-called African Americans. And matter of fact, just look up Giovanni Verrazano, Letters to King Francis, and read it. It's right on the internet. You can look that up as well. But there's so many explorers, and there's so many people that wrote books that had proof about what the people looked like. They even showed you pictures of them. Even on the tobacco packages, it said Black Indians, right? And even the first emblem of America was painted with a so-called black female. So, or a so-called melanated female. I don't like using the word black because black means you have no standing in law. There's no nation called black. There's no people. I mean, we call ourselves black people now or African Americans, but before in the 60s, we were called colored. Our names just keep changing. So going back to the movie Roots, 1977, Roots came out, 1988, now we are called African Americans for the first time. Now, and also, and President Obama in 2015, he signed some kind of bill into law. They went back and changed everything where they said colored or Negro. Now, when you go read that, I'm talking about old posts, it'll say African American. So they went in and added African American to where it was not before. So, but if you look at an old newspaper clippings or something like that, you can actually see it said Negroes or colored or so forth. Or even in the 60s, you see the signs that says colored. So they can't actually do everything. But a lot of places now, they put African American, African American. And now, well, by doing that, that's going to brainwash the future generation. When they go back and read these so-called articles and stuff, when it says African American, they're going to actually think that they're African American. They're from Africa. They were brought over here by slave ships. That white people actually had the wherewithal to bring them over here in the first place, and they didn't. And that's the sad part. They barely made it themselves. And during that time, they were warring against each other as well. The French against the Dutch and so forth. And so when you read uh, what's his name, Giovanni Verrazzano's records, he said because they were trying to hide from the Dutch or the British or something. Go read the article yourself. They were trying to hide from the Spaniards, I think, because a lot of these so-called European nations were inundating the Americas. In some places they speak French, in some places they spoke French, and some Spanish, and in some places they also spoke English. And so they were coming into the Americas during this time, exploring Americas because it was a new world. It was a new place, at least new to them. So 1988, we became African Americans. And a lot of this had to do with the so-called brainwashing of the TV shows and Roots and all that. And it's sad. So now we call ourselves African Americans, and the truth is we're not. And now we're going to get into Kamala. Camilla is not an African American or so-called indigenous American. She is not us at all. She's actually Asian. Her mom is Hindu or Indian, and her father is Hindu and Irish. But he claims to be a Jamaican, but a Jamaican is not a race, people. There are white Jamaicans, black Jamaicans, or melanated Jamaicans. You can change your identity as a Jamaican if you want to. Just like people come over here and now they call themselves Americans, right? But so this is what her dad did. Her father was a Hindu and an Irish, and the mom is an Indian. And so Kamala Harris now is walking around because she went to Howard University. Now she's claiming to be so-called black, you know. But y'all got to understand something. That's why when Biden and her got into office, they passed the Asian hate bill. The Asian hate bill was passed while she came in office, and Biden and them passed it while she was in there. Now we've been here forever because it's our land, but there's no hate bill for us yet. Not at all. And y'all must understand the real reservations are the so-called ghettos or the projects. And y'all will understand what a project is and all that, but I'm not gonna get into all this video because I'm trying to get in with this Kamala Harris. I'm just trying to show you and what she says of herself. So she says, now a lot of people are trying to give her the black vote. Well, we're about to find out right now. So let's listen to what this video says about her. Go ahead and play it. now.
Becoming the first Indian American woman to be nominated as a vice presidential candidate in America. In a recent event, the Democratic vice presidential nominee took a trip down memory lane, recalling her mother's journey from India to America. Now, her mother, Shamila Gopalan, was born in Chennai and immigrated to America to study at UC Berkeley. The Indian origin senator also talked about her trips to India and her mother's attempts to instill a love of good idli in her.
I stand before you as the first candidate for Vice President of the United States of South Asian descent. When my mother, Shamala, stepped off the plane in California at 19 years old, she didn't have much in the way of belongings, but she carried with her lessons from back home. Growing up, my mother would take my sister, Maya, and me back to what was then called Madras, because she wanted us to understand where she had come from and where we had ancestry.
All right, y'all. So y'all heard her. She said out of her own mouth that she's from Asian descent. Her heritage is from Asian descent. She is not us. She never did come from here. And so a lot of people are talking about, I see a lot of people are voting for somebody because of the color of her skin. Right? I said there's a lot of dark Indian people. And that's a fact. And I guess everybody knows that. There's a lot of dark Indian people. And so, but she's going around and claiming to be black now, and she's not. So she kind of she blows with the wind. And so, also, Candace Owens, Candace Owens, she did a great video on her, and I think everybody should check it out. Now, I'm just gonna put it up here. I'm not gonna play her video, but I'm just gonna show it. Y'all can actually watch the video later on yourselves, and you can see what Candace Owens definitely did a good job exposing um, Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris has been exposed even in, as in California. She was locking up so-called indigenous black men and women or black Americans. And so y'all need to go really do your research on her and check out what she really did and who she really is for real. But all these people that's voting for her, she is not for you. And she never has been for you. Yeah, she dated a black man, what's his name, Willie Brown or somebody Brown. She was a governor somewhere. She had an affair with him, but that's pretty much, that's it. And she went to so-called Howard. But going to Howard does not make you black though. Or you not make you a so-called African American.
Idli in her.
Well, this is Candace Owens, and this is the video on YouTube. I'm not going to play her video, but I want y'all to go look up this video. It's called "This is Terrifying." What is Kamala hiding? Right? And go look this up on YouTube and watch this video because Candace Owens, she did a great job of exposing the Democratic Party and who Kamala Harris said she was absolute lie. And she put it in a book. And so, like I said, some of these politicians, they'll do anything and they'll lie to you and they don't expect anybody to do research on them. But she put herself out there, and Candace Owens, she did a great job of exposing Kamala Harris. So please, y'all, check out this video when you get a chance. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to play a quick short of a little bit about what she found in that video.
Last night, we decided to continue our research to see if we could find birth certificates and marriage certificates and death certificates, which could further signify those points. And indeed, it did. As speculated, we were able to confirm that Kamala's Black grandmother that she showed us in that picture died in 1960, before Kamala was born. I can show you right now her death certificate. As you can see there, it says that she died in July of 1960. And so this is a huge scandal. Just an absolutely huge scandal. Kamala Harris published in her book that she was standing next to her grandma Beryl. But Grandma Beryl died in 1960, 4 years before Kamala Harris was born. The last
It's the family deity that binds Kamala Harris and her maternal family to the small village of Thulasendrapuram in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. It's her ancestral hometown, and they come to pray for her success. Though the family has never lived here, Kamala has visited the village as a child. Her presence is now prominently marked in shops and homes. Her family has made donations for the temple and one on her behalf.
Kamala Harris. She is from Chennai, it is told. There is no word in the dictionary to express our feelings. As I repeatedly say, we are too proud of her because she has brought the name of this village worldwide.
This far-flung agricultural hamlet has been thrust into the limelight. Its inhabitants proud and call her the daughter and sister of our land.
India is a very important part of my life. When my sister Maya and I were growing up, our mother would take us from the Bay Area to India pretty much every other year. And the purpose of those trips were many, including that we would well understand where she came from, what produced her, so that we could spend time with our grandparents, with my uncle and our chitties.
This is referring to you and the learning. Dr. Sarala is Kamala's aunt, her mother's younger sister. A gynecologist, she has worked for a few years for the NHS. It's during that time Kamala and her sister Maya visited her in Bristol.
Right from her childhood, we have seen her as an affectionate person. She's very caring, very affectionate, cannot see anybody in trouble. She will jump if somebody gets into trouble and she'll fight for the person.
Ma'am, during these elections, there have been some disparaging remarks. Do you get hurt?
No, I just ignore them. See, I know my niece, okay? Whatever good or bad is said about her, whatever bad is said about, I know how much to believe and how much not to believe. The cake.
A close-knit family, there have been many celebrations in India, but her last visit was solemn. Kamala came to immerse her mother's ashes here, a Hindu tradition. Across the seas, the race to the White House is keenly watched by many here in her maternal homeland. Neville Lazarus, Sky News in Chennai, India.
So clearly, y'all can see that Kamala Harris is not a so-called African American or indigenous American, right? And now let's see what she says, that if she's going to do anything for so-called or Black people. And on this next video, you can actually see, just listen to her language. She knows that she's not a Black person, and the way she speaks, she can actually see it in her language. The fact that how she says it. I'm not gonna do about Black people have went through this, and Black people, they went through Jim Crow and all that stuff. You're gonna hear her say all that, but that just shows you that she is not so-called indigenous American. And so I don't, while she's running to who she says she is, I mean, she's just totally lying. And she's being propped up in front of everybody as if she's a so-called indigenous American, in which she's not. And she knows she's not. And her family knows they're not. What I just prove to you in the other videos. So now let's listen to her in this video. And let's see what she says.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that Everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people.
All right, y'all. So y'all seen those video clips now of Kamala Harris, and that's not all of them. That's just some. You get to see who she really is, and what she's really saying, and also again go watch the Candace Owen video, because Candace Owen, she breaks that down. She does a very good job on that video. She exposes a lot about Kamala Harris, and I'm gonna just say this, y'all. This last 4 years has been the worst 4 years since I've been alive that I've ever lived through. It was the most dystopian time that you've ever seen in America. I mean, you had people forcing people to take vaccines, forced vaccinations, right? Shutting down the economy. People wearing face muzzles everywhere. Scared. They promoted fear. Joe Biden got on the news talking about this is the unvaccinated, people. I mean, all that stuff that was going on during that time, it was the worst. People were losing their jobs. How could y'all forget? Do you remember they was giving you a Krispy Kreme donut, a donut for a jab, right? A joint for a jab, a joint for a jab, right? A shot for a shot. I mean, they was even giving people money in the beginning to incentivize people to do that. To the last point, since they couldn't push us the way they wanted to, they went after your job. And so many people were on lockdown. And so many small businesses end up being closed because of that, while the big box stores stayed open. How could y'all forget that quick? The illegal immigration, right, is off the hook right now. But they called Trump a racist because he was trying to stop that. And the high inflation that we're going through right now. All the money that's being sent overseas to other countries for war. Ukraine, all these other places. Hundreds of billions of dollars being sent while the American people are suffering. I haven't done videos about the homeless people that's in America right now. Then go back and check some of those videos out. But these are Americans. And the people in America are suffering. Just even after this so-called hurricane that went through there in North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee, and all those areas right there that were hit hard, in parts of Virginia. They're still not recovered yet. But this last 4 years, how could y'all forget of what we just went through. And how could you vote for the same stuff again? Are you agreeing with all that? I mean, you pretty much have to show a pass to get to even go to the store. And a lot of countries were doing that or starting that up. But luckily there were people that were fighting and stuff. And they took it to the Supreme Court. It was unconstitutional. Even I got sent home from my job because I refused to do something, put something in me that wasn't even, I mean, the companies had immunity that made it. You couldn't sue them. So if you took it, you couldn't sue. So why would you take something that if somebody got immunity from it? They should be standing behind their stuff. And also, it should have been a freedom of choice. That's what America is all about, supposed to be all about. And another thing, America is not a democracy. It's a republic. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, you know the Pledge of Allegiance, to the republic. We are not a democracy. But these people are for globalism. And they call Trump a protectionist because he was trying to bring the jobs back home so it could be made in America. Now, I was one that used to be against Trump. I couldn't stand Trump because I listened to the black stations, so-called black stations, and everybody, he's a racist. He's a racist. But when I did my studies, and I'm not going to put it in this video, you will find that it was always Joe Biden. I mean, you got the videos. I mean, he even went to the head of the Ku Klux Klan funeral. Said he was a great mentor. Go look all this stuff up. It's right out for you to see. You can see who Biden was. So everything has been reversed on the Trump. But here's the deal, y'all. The last 4 years has been the worst years since I've been alive. I'm almost 60 years old. And I'm going to tell you, that was the worst 4 years ever. If people are talking about a so-called mark of the beast system, that pushed us so close to that, it was ridiculous. They were to the point you couldn't buy or sell unless you had to show that you had that card. They said you've been, you've been injected, basically. And we was getting that close. And so, can it happen again? Absolutely. And I think it will happen again because so many people caved in because of their jobs, because they knew you needed money. See, they knew that the money you didn't have, and it's done that way on purpose. The money flows between the big players, the big corporations and all that. That's where the big money flows. Everything else is trickled down to the so-called people. So they know you're the worker bee or the so-called slave, the employee. So you have to do the work. And therefore, you know that if you don't take the job, somebody else will. And that's what they use all the time. And that's why we always stay on the bottom. Anyway, I was just exposing, I didn't expose it. I was just showing you some of the things that were out there about Kamala that's already out there so y'all can see it for yourself. How you vote, what you do, that's up to you. I'm not, this is not our system. So I'm not voting it anymore. I know people gonna get upset with that, but then just you do how you want to do. Because the demands, you're voting for people who didn't promise you anything. So why are you giving your vote up to people who didn't promise you nothing? And definitely, I would never give my vote because of the skin color. I would never do that. And y'all just remember one thing, all skin folk and kinfolk. All right, this is the Truth Seeker Network. Peace to you next time, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. You know what I'm gonna say. And I'm out.